ladies and gentlemen, now hosting the RizzoCast. Put your hands together for Steven Risotto.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome. My name is Steven Risotto. I used to cover the San Francisco Giants for SF Bay, and I'm currently a producer for 95.7 The Game. I'm also the host of RizzoCast, the podcast that features current and former big league players, coaches, fans, media, and others who are regarded as some of the brightest minds around the game of baseball. Today we're doing something a little bit different. I'm joined by a special co-host you've seen on a handful of past episodes. It is the great Barry Brennan. He joins the show. And Brennan and I, are joined by a guest who is a former big league right-handed pitcher. It's Dominic Leone. He pitched in parts of 11 seasons at the major league level with 9 different teams. Leone broke into the majors with the Seattle Mariners in 2014, became a key piece for the San Francisco Giants' 2021 postseason bullpen, and recently wrapped up his playing career following the 2024 season. We dive into his journey through the league, from growing up a Red Sox fan to navigating the realities of life as a multi-team reliever, the highs and challenges of pitching and pressure moments. And Dominic also opens up about transitioning out of baseball and his newest venture, which is building a presence as a social media creator on Instagram. It's a very fun and honest look at a long baseball life and what comes after. This is episode number 184, RizzoCast, and let's get started.
Alrighty, and we are back on RizzoCast with Dom Leone, and Dom is nice enough to take some time out of his very busy days, appearing on a lot of podcasts these days. Dom, what's going on? How you doing? Welcome.
I'm doing great, man. It's it's an exciting time. Just pumping content out left and right, and again, just trying to share some stories and some fun stuff. So, really pleased and happy that you guys have me on.
Yeah, you're doing an incredible job of that, and we will get to that, I promise. We'll kind of hype up the new series that you have just a little bit. But we are recording this on the week of Thanksgiving. Everybody kind of has their own thing going on. Brennan probably has his stuff going on. I have my stuff going on. Do you have any traditions for Thanksgiving that you always enjoy? And is there anything going on there with some holiday gift strategies? Because I know you're a dad, and that's a big part of it too.
Oh boy. Yeah. So I'll be honest. I'm normally really good at knocking out my Christmas list and getting that stuff done for my kids and my wife early. But this year, I've been slacking big time. So, I'm really gonna have to pick the pace up there. But in terms of traditions, look, I'm gonna stuff my face tomorrow. I come from an Italian family, and then I moved to the South. So it's like I get the best of both worlds where, I'm going to just stuff my face with collards and sweet potato casserole and turkey and all the good stuff. And then for Christmas, I'll do probably the more traditional Italian type meal. And, no lack of good cuisine here at the Leone household. Let's just say that.
That's great. So let's take it all the way back to the beginning. You grew up in Norwich, Connecticut, which I looked it up on Google Maps, and it's almost exactly halfway between New York City and Boston, for those out there who haven't heard of it. So I'm wondering, of the teams in the area, which one did you grow up a fan of, and which team did most people in Norwich root for, if there is one?
So that's a great point. We were about like an hour and 15, hour and 20 from Boston, and like maybe just over that to New York. And my hometown was about a 60-40 split between Yankees, Red Sox. I grew up a Red Sox fan myself. And ironically, in Norwich, Giants, here you go, Giants history, right? In Norwich, we had a team. They were the Norwich Navigators. They were the Double-A affiliate of the Yankees for the longest time. And then when they left, the Giants came in. Of all teams, the Giants came in, and so we had their minor league affiliate in town. And so it's, again, always fun to grow up around baseball. But I particularly grew up a Red Sox fan.
So that means you were a teenager when the 2004 team came back from down 3-0, obviously broke the curse.
I
So
was.
what What did that team mean to you, and what was it like being in an area with a lot of Yankees fans when that happened?
You know, I'll be honest with you, like to dig deep on that team, that run, um, was like one of the first peaks of baseball interest that I had. Like it really captured my um my interest, my love for the game. Like I followed that team religiously. Like I watched the documentary on Netflix, and it still gives me chills. Like I watched it with my wife, and I'm like telling her, I'm like, oh hey, like this is where Poppy hits the home run over the wall, and everyone goes nuts, and I think it's Torrey Hunter goes flipping over the wall, and she's like, how do you remember that? Like you can't even remember what you had for lunch today, but you remember what happened in '04, so like growing up, that was a huge highlight of my baseball love. And really honestly, it really kind of sparked me to like, man, I want to get to that level. I want to feel that type of intensity.
Yeah, and there are the two shortstops, right, of that era that you probably had so many debates about, right? Is Jeter or Nomar? Jeter or Nomar? And it's like the ongoing question. And I always hear people that grew up during that time and debating it, and you could throw A-Rod in there if you want.
Yeah.
But like I mean, did you have those debates a lot? And were you the guy that just was always sticking up for Nomar in those debates?
Uh, Duh, obviously, right? Like I said earlier, I'm Italian, right? So no my gashi para just
Yeah.
rolls off the tongue a little bit better. Um, no, it's funny because yeah, growing up a Red Sox fan, it's like you never want to acknowledge the rival, right? But I quickly turned to where like I could appreciate baseball, and it's like guys like Mariano, who again later kind of helped me in my career, you know, subconsciously, and then obviously guys like Jeter, the consummate pro, like just did everything the right way. You didn't hate them. You didn't hate them as fans because you're just like, God, they're so good. They're so damn good.
So I like to ask players this question. What is the most insane game that you were part of at a lower level of baseball? So like high school, college, minor leagues, even little league maybe, that nobody remembers because it happened at a lower level, not in MLB. Is there like an insane game or moment that your team played in that stands out?
Wow. To be honest with you, like there's too many minor league games, and I mean college games are crazy, high school. So the one I can think of, right, is I played in High Desert, California, in Victorville, which is no longer a league, part of the league. Um, and it was the A ball affiliate of the Mariners. And when I tell you that the stadium was placed just in the middle of a desert, uh, I'm not exaggerating. It was like the stadium was built into a bowl of sand, and the wind was wild. That whole league was like you would get 20, 30, 40 mile per hour winds any day of the week. And so I remember a game, and I was sitting in the bullpen. Um, guy on our team was pitching. Foul ball gets hit, right, and it looks like it's one of those easy foul balls that's like traveling back into the stands. It's going to land, by the press box, which was like a stack of bricks at High Desert Stadium. But the ball's going back, and we're like not thinking anything of it, and all of a sudden, the wind carries this ball probably 20 rows back into the field of play, back past the catcher, past home plate, and landed in fair territory. And like everyone was like, "What in the world?" Like scrambling, trying to make the play. I don't remember if the guy was out or safe or not, but like just like crazy little minor league story stuff like that. Like any game in the high in the old Cal League is worth like almost like America's Funniest Home Videos, or just like the wildest things you can think of.
Yeah, I feel like whenever I go to a minor league game, like the San Jose Giants, the single A team, like there's maybe like a 50-50 chance we'll see like a 10-run comeback or something like that.
Yeah, I was gonna say like there were plenty of games that ended like 18-12, 24-16. Yeah, I mean you're just like football scores literally.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Yeah, a lot of antics in the California League. I mean, yeah, no, the deserts, Inland Empire, Visalia, like there's a lot of teams down there that play in weird climates. I want Brendan mentioned college. I want to go back to college real quick, but kind of in the
Sure.
current sense, because I'm sure you saw the Giants that recently hired Tony Vitello as the next manager. And look, you're someone that attended a well-known baseball school, a powerhouse in many ways in Clemson, and you've seen the way that these college coaches operate. And granted, NIL has probably changed things since you've been in college, but what do you
Right.
think of that just overall idea of a college coach making that jump? No minor league experience managing, but straight from college and making that jump.
Honestly, I think nowadays you look at college and you look at the how it's all run. It's run like a professional organization, and so these guys, these coaches, have to dive into so many different pools that they didn't have to years ago. And like you said, they have to deal with NIL money. They have to deal with recruiting, and basically, recruiting has become free agency, right? With the transfer portal,
Yep.
it's year to year. So there are now a lot of subtle similarities between the two games. What's not different is the game in between the lines, right? So, when Tony comes in, it's going to be the same game, yes, on a grander scale, and you have the highest level athletes there. But again, he's coming from a program that, my gosh, how many of those guys flipped right to the big leagues within a year or two? Off the top of my head, it's like Garrett Crochet and Drew Gilbert, and they've produced. Tennessee has produced so many unreal baseball players that transition right into pro ball. So, like, I would just say, I don't think there's going to be any really learning curve. The game will be the game, and he's going to have really good athletes, really good people on the field. And again, to come from what is now a very professional organizational like system in the NCAA and some of those big name college teams, I think he'll do just fine in a pro setting.
So you were drafted in the 16th round in 2012, and I'm always interested to see guys who are drafted in later rounds but ended up having lengthy big league careers. So what do you think allowed you to have so much success and kind of rise through the ranks above guys who are drafted ahead of you?
Well, let me correct you there. Okay, I was the third overall pick, just happened to be on the third day of the draft. So um, no. So look, for me, I was never the biggest. I was never the strongest. I was never the fastest. I couldn't throw the hardest, right? Um, Getting drafted, yes, I thought I was gonna go higher. You always do, right? You're always, naive in that sense. But I knew once I got my opportunity that now it's time to go, right? As long as I could get my toe into that pool, um, it's time for me to make a name for myself. So I tried to just stay hungry. I tried to always improve, always work on myself, always get better, always learn. That's the other thing. It's like, I knew I didn't have everything figured out. So I wanted to soak up as much as I possibly could and just really prove people wrong. That was kind of my thing. I was always a bulldog. Um, and what made me successful was my hunger and my drive to prove the haters wrong and to, always improve.
So speaking of proving people wrong, I know a lot of guys who are drafted late kind of have the number overall that they were drafted burned into their brain. Can you recall yours off the top of your head?
I want to say it was, I might be wrong. I want to say it was like 491 or something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah. I used to, earlier on in my career, I used to know pretty much everybody who was drafted in the 15 rounds before me. And who they were. And that's not to say I was, dogging them or that that they weren't worthy of it, because they certainly were. There's a lot of actually really good players that were drafted in front of me and some of my friends. So, but it definitely is added motivation. It's like, you knew, you weren't a top pick. So it's like, you got something to prove and you've got a bigger mountain to climb than some other guys.
So as I said, you were drafted in 2012, and you ended up making the Mariners opening day roster in 2014, if I'm not mistaken, and being on the team that entire season. So can you speak to what allowed you to move through the minor leagues so quickly?
I'll be honest, I a part of it is luck. A part of it is opportunity. So when I got drafted, in 2012, I went to short season and they put me in the bullpen. And it was the first time I'd been just a reliever. I'd always been a starter in high school and in college. And from that workload, I think I started to see a pretty nice uptick in my stuff. I went from like 90 to 93 as a starter to I was like 93, 95. First time I'd hit those velo marks really consistently. And going into spring of 2013, my first full spring training, those jumps just stayed. Like I worked my ass off in the gym that off season, and I came back to spring training throwing 94, 96. And so, that makes you, that can kind of pop off the page there where people go, oh, wow, like he's had a pretty big jump. I pitched well early on in those minor leagues. Clinton, Iowa, high desert, like I mentioned, and then jumping 3 levels that one year, getting to double A. Again, just the consistency that I had, the uptick in my stuff really helped. And then again, here's where luck comes into play, right? I lucked out and I got sent to the Arizona Fall League. And it just so happened that our manager at the time, Lloyd McClendon, was like randomly turning on a game, a Fall League game that was on, and I was pitching, and I think I was like 96 to 100. And throwing strikes and being aggressive and kind of doing what I did best. And Lloyd saw me and was like, who the hell's that kid? Like, who is he? Like, we need to get him in camp. So, fast forward, I went to big league camp. I got my invite to big league camp the next year, and again, just I grasp onto the veterans in the clubhouse. We had an unbelievable crew that year, guys that were awesome. They really helped me out, helped me learn the game and the nuances of things. And then, like I said, the physical stuff played. It was now in the mix. And so as long as I could just be consistent, keep my head down and keep working, I was going to get a shot. And sure enough, I did.
Yeah, Lloyd McClendon, by the way, one of the all-time managerial meltdowns where he walked away with the first base bag in Pittsburgh.
Love it. Fiery, man. He was fiery then too. It's great.
Yeah, no, 100%. And you mentioned just pitching and your stuff. And one of the things that I kind of noticed just by looking at your Instagram feed was some of the things that you're focused on as a pitcher, right? And we live in a world of analytics and data, and it seems like, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, that you kind of latched onto that information. So, and when you came up, some of that technology maybe wasn't as prominent as it is now. So how did you
Right.
kind of like adapt to the Rapsodos and the Trackmans of the world and understand like what these angles and release points and all that stuff and how much you should be throwing of your secondary pitches, all that stuff combined and all that data. How much did you latch onto that and did it take you some time to like figure out how all that stuff worked?
For sure, it took some time, and I still don't know if I, completely grasped it, to my advantage during my career. I wish I probably should have dove in more. But like, part of it was I grew up in the older style of baseball, the older style of pitching, and I loved that, where you had to have some feel, you had to have some, just inside knowledge of the game. You had to understand swings, reading swings. Then with the addition of technology, like, yeah, I kind of fought it for a little bit. I'm like, yeah, I don't need that. That's not, that's not going to play or that's not really going to matter. And then, gosh, was I wrong? Like, it's now flipped completely on its head. And, again, I wish I studied more of that side. I still really pitched and competed based on, you know, heart and grit and, attacking smartly with, pitch sequencing and whatnot. But, more of the gritty side, the old school side of baseball and pitching than I did the analytics. Later on in my career, I realized how important it was, and how important it was to use to get a job. um, when I left San Francisco, I thought I was going to pick right up and get a job pretty easily, and that wasn't necessarily the case. So I had to really dive into my metrics and what I did well, and my biomechanics, and all these analytical fields that guys use and teams use now. I really kind of had to play catch up a little bit, and ultimately it got me a couple more years. But I think if I had fully embraced it from the jump, not necessarily that I would have changed the way I did things, but I would have. It would have just been nice to have that knowledge in the back of my head.
Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned San Francisco, and we'll get to that in just a sec. But I do want to ask, you mentioned something interesting there where you said that, you thought you would get a job and opportunities available. And you've had a lot of jobs in the big leagues, right? And not many
Yeah.
people could say that they played in every division, or, not many players could compare to kind of the well-traveled nature of your career and being somewhere a year and then being somewhere different the next year. And from an off the field perspective, like, what is the process? Because we don't know this from outsiders looking in. What is the process of from when you end up with a new team to moving your family, adjusting to the living situation? Sometimes maybe you get DFA'd, released, or traded mid-season, or signed as a free agent. All that behind the scenes stuff. What are some things that maybe people don't necessarily know about all that process and figuring out the off the field stuff and logistics?
Yeah, that's a great point. And it's something that I'm actually very passionate about because I move so much. And it's nice to kind of peel the onion back and right show the underneath layers of how all this stuff works, right? So the best example I can give of that is my 2023 season, right? So I'm a free agent. I'm waiting for the phone to ring. It's not ringing. And so I'm picking up the phone myself, and I'm calling, people that I know, coaches, GMs, my agents are doing the same thing, and I'm trying to just get a job. Right. And, I'm back home here in South Carolina, and um, I ultimately sign a deal with the Texas Rangers, and I go to spring training and a non-roster invite. So nothing's guaranteed, minor league deal. And I've got to work my butt off to try and make the team. And so I feel like I have a pretty good spring, and it's right up to the last day. And oh, by the way, my family is, still waiting to see, like, okay, are they going to go to Texas? Is he going to go to Texas? Is he going to go to Round Rock? Is he going to go to, wherever? And so my family's at home in South Carolina. I'm in spring training in Arizona. Um, I get word that, hey, you're not going to make the team. So you can either go to Round Rock, or you can, elect free agency again. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, all right, well, I guess I'll go to Round Rock, right? So I go. My family comes out. They spend a month in Round Rock, Texas, with me, which we had a great time. It was fantastic. I pitched well, and then I had an out in my contract at the beginning of May, and I'm like, you know what, I'm pitching well enough. I'm going to take that out, which allows me to then see if any teams would want me, right? So my family's out in Texas. I've got two small boys, and a dog, so like, not easy to travel with. The phone rings on May 1st, and the Mets say, hey, we're going to bring you to the big leagues. So pack your stuff up. You've got like 24 hours, and we'll see you in Detroit, where the team was. So I'm like, okay, well, I guess I've got to go. My wife has got to pack up two young boys, a dog, a whole house full of stuff. And she's not going to go to New York. She's going to go back home. So I go to Detroit. She goes home. I'm with the Mets now. I go back. I got to find a place in Long Island now. I've got to find an apartment. She comes up for part of the summer. My family comes up part of the summer in New York. We get to the trade deadline in August. I get traded to the Angels. Got to pack my stuff up in New York. My wife has to do it in New York. Go there. I go to Anaheim. My wife stays back. So now I'm away from my family. Oh, by the way, I still have an apartment in New York that I got to get rid of, an apartment in I mean, you can kind of get the sense. It's a wild world. Oh, by the way, then the same year I got let go by Anaheim, put on waivers, and Seattle claimed me again. So I had to go to Seattle, and we had 2 off days in the month of September. Both off days, I had to buy personal flights to fly to Anaheim, to pack up my apartment in Anaheim, get bags, everything, boom, fly back to Seattle. It was, long story short, it's a mess. It's a mess, and people don't see that. Like, the teams don't necessarily pay for your housing. You're finding apartments and housing and things for your family and for yourself, and you're kind of your own advocate there. You've got to be able to handle all that type of stuff. So that was probably the craziest year of my career, but there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that fans don't see, and it definitely can impact play on the field. And it's real. My story is just one of hundreds and thousands. So it's a wild, wild world.
Yeah, and I imagine the vast, vast majority of fans have absolutely no idea of any of that. But before that, a couple years before, you were, of course, on the 2021 Giants team that won 107 games and the
Oh yeah.
division. And you really had one of the best release seasons in Giants history.
Yeah.
So what can you say about being on that year's team and what it was like to be a part of that whole season?
My gosh, what a ton of fun that was. Such a good group of guys too. Again, another year that I came into a team. I came into spring on a minor league deal and was trying to just get back to the big leagues and prove myself again. And I had a really good spring. I thought I was going to make the team right out of camp, and that we were still in that like post-COVID protocol year. So they had the alt site scenario, and again, with minor league deals, it's really hard to crack the roster. I didn't end up making it that year, and so I went to the short season. Or I'm sorry, not short season. The COVID site, which was in Sacramento, and so the first month, April to May, was like kind of a trial run. We played the Oakland A's COVID site team, I think like 20 times in that month. It was ridiculous. But, I was in a mode that year where I was really determined to prove people wrong. Like, I was coming off a couple bad years. One, an up and down year in St. Louis, then the COVID year in Cleveland. And so I was like, I want to make a name for myself again. I want to really stick. So I was pretty motivated all throughout that month of April, May, when AAA started. I kind of set the world on fire, and I was just mowing people down. And once I got my opportunity in San Francisco, credit to this guy, Kurt Casale is one of my really good buddies. But Kurt, I remember the very first game I got there in San Fran, he just looked at me and he was like, go be a dude, like, go be our guy. All right. Like, you deserve it. You should have had this opportunity. Take it and run with it, man. And sure enough, like, I did. Like, I didn't want to leave any stone unturned. Right. I just wanted to leave it all on the field. And if I succeeded, great. If I didn't, at least I could sleep at night going, like, I gave it all. And sure enough, we had a pretty darn good team that year. And like I said, the personalities were even better. Like, that's, I think, what made us so successful, is we all loved each other. We all had so much fun. And I know a lot of guys have spoken about this, but like, we showed up to the yard every day knowing we were going to kick someone's ass. So it was fun.
Yeah, it seemed like everybody in the bullpen that year had an incredible season, but it was you who was on the mound in game 162 to clinch the division. I was there sitting along the third base line. So what was it
Nice.
like, that singular moment in time for you?
So I'll take you back just a little bit in that game, right? We got out to that huge lead. And I remember just the feeling of sitting in the bullpen and, watching the scoreboard, watching the Dodgers score, right? And I remember that they ended up, I think they lost, right? something like that. And it was I think they lost, and so we knew that all we had to do was win the game. Right, we had a huge lead. Webby started the game and was dominant as he always is,
and hit a
uh,
home run.
yeah, right. And so I'm sitting there and I'm watching, and the game's a blowout, and I'm like, okay, I don't know if I'm going to get into this game or not. And we had our young guy, we had Curvin Castro go in, and he was, what an opportunity for him, and good for him. He went in and he battled and he dominated, but they ended up kind of creeping back, right? And I remember a phone call coming down a couple innings before the ninth where, I think it had to be Bailey asked Craig Alvarez, who's our bullpen coach at the time, asked down like, "Hey, like if this gets any closer, who we got down there, who wants to pitch?" And credit to Albie, I remember he looked at me and he was like, he kind of gave me like that look, like, "Hey, would you want it?" And in that moment, like with everything I went through earlier on in the year, not making the team out of camp, all the fire I had, I was like, hell yeah, I want that moment, right? Like it's honestly, it's the defining moment of my career now. And had I said no in that moment because oh, we're up big or whatever, history could have been different, right? But I said, hell yeah, I'm gonna take that ball anytime you ask me to do it. And so I remember they made the move, they made the call, and I kicked that damn door open from the bullpen and ran in, and I was so jacked up, so hyped, to just send not only the San Francisco Giants organization to the next level, but to send that group of guys that I bonded with so well, like to help be the guy that catapulted them in that one very moment, right, to the postseason and to a division championship over an 106 win Dodger team. Like it was really special. It's like I said, it's a defining moment of my career, and something that I'm insanely grateful for, and was really thankful to get that opportunity.
And that year ended up being the only time you ever pitched in the postseason. So I know it was only
Yes.
2 games for you. So, but how was the postseason different from the regular season in your experience?
I think we had a unique experience there, and again, for me to have only a short postseason career, one, it's exhilarating. Every game feels like that 162 game, right? Except you don't have a blowout lead. Like you're in the grind from the second you get to the ballpark, right? But it's fun. Like it's a fun pressure. It's a fun feeling of, that's why you do it. You want to live up and live in these big moments. Um, our unique scenario was we had to play the Dodgers, and it's like we've seen them 18 times, 19 times during the year, and it's like, oh, here we go again, right? So it was almost a little exhausting. You're like, gosh, these guys just won't go away. But it was fun. Like it's pressure packed. It's intense. It's not cut. Some people aren't cut out for that type of stuff. And for me, I loved every minute of it. I loved every pitch, even though look, I didn't have great results, but man, I wish I had more of those opportunities throughout my career.
Yeah, it was the Dodgers, but it was not the alternate site Oakland A's. So that is
Right. I may have done better if it was those guys. No offense to those guys. Those guys were great too. They're a lot of those guys ended up being in the bigs too. But yeah, not taking away anything from them. But yeah, it was tough. Those 106 win Dodgers.
Yeah, no, they just kept coming back all season. And like one of the things the Giants deployed and you were a part of, you had 4 starts that year. And
Yeah.
and you mentioned like a little while ago how you came up as a starting pitcher. Uh did you like opening? Like was there a sense of like kind of like taking it back and like going through the preparation that maybe you once prepared for like as a young minor leaguer? Or was it not so different and just kind of same routine in the bullpen, knowing that you're not going to pitch too long. Did you enjoy being an opener during that time?
I did because I had a unique perspective as I came up through the system that like I I always had a closer's mentality
Mm.
as a starter. And so that made me not a very effective starter, right? Like I had some good starts here and there, but I always tried to treat each inning like it was a save, right? My best year starting, was in college and I my sophomore year, and literally I remember that year, my mentality was hey, first inning, go close the first inning, right? Go close the second inning, go close the third inning, right? And if I could do that for 6, 7, 8 innings, pretty good start, right? So when I got to open, obviously I was kind of a fiery guy during my career. I liked to, the emotion of the side of things, and opening really allowed me to channel that like close the first inning feeling, and on the greatest stage too, which was it was fun. I enjoyed it. I mean, it's definitely different in preparation, but at the end of the day, you got to go just get 3 outs, whether it's in the first, the ninth, the fourth, the 11th. It doesn't really matter. You got to go do your job, and that's to get 3 outs.
Yeah, and the guy that deployed you in that situation was a member of the '04 Red Sox, Gabe Kapler. He was your skipper in San Francisco. Um, and he's now the assistant GM, of course, of the Marlins too.
Yeah.
And he's certainly unique. That might be an understatement. I guess how would you describe playing for him? Because I think Brennan and I get a kick out of him. But how would you describe playing for him? And were there any interesting moments, interesting Gabe Kapler moments that stood out?
You know, Playing for Gabe was a lot of fun. I mean, we were again when you're in a position like we were in the 21 season where we were so good and we were just rolling. He didn't have to do much, right? Like he'd be a presence in the clubhouse or on the field and check in, say hi, but like he didn't really do a whole lot. Like the best part about Gabe was he let us be us. He let us um, succeed. He let us fail. We didn't have like a whole lot of team meetings. Like it was just like, hey, y'all are a well-oiled machine. You guys go out in the field and just do it, right? The one I always love this story from John Brebbia. John liked to try and mess around with Gabe quite a bit, and so like I remember throughout the 22 season. There's not one specific moment, but I just remember that John's like goal the entire year was to like whenever Gabe came out to take the ball from him, like do something weird, like give him a hug or like like do something awkward. And I remember where there was a moment I think John came off the field after an inning, and instead of like the typical high five, John like gave him a big hug and like might even tried to slip like a kiss on the cheek or something. And Gabe was just like what in the world, like what is going on, like give me the high five and get out of here, man. Like take it to the bench. But it speaks more honestly to probably Brebbia than it does anybody else. But yeah, Gabe like I said, the greatest thing he did was he really just kind of let us be us in 21, and it led to a lot of that success.
So you kind of already answered the question. I did have a question in here about John Brebbia because I know you were teammates with him on three
Yes.
different teams.
Yes,
And
good. Okay.
everything I've ever heard about him is that he's like the funniest guy, the nicest guy in all of baseball. So you already shared a couple stories, but is there anything else about him that stands out to you?
I highly recommend if you can get John, if you can track him down, right? Find
I'm
John
writing it
Brebbia.
down.
Yes, you have to, because he is one of the best people I've ever run into in baseball. His story is insane. I mean, if you listen to his story, like he wasn't a high draft pick. He was in the Yankee system. He wasn't throwing very hard, and he gets released, and so he goes to indie ball, and his only thought in indie ball is, I'm gonna try and blow out. Like he's like, I want to blow my elbow out so that like I can be done and be done with this, right? And by doing that, he ends up gaining like 5 or 6 miles per hour at those 94, 96, and next thing you know, that he's with the Cardinals, right? So, um, he has such a unique perspective. Like he's so very good at, he knows exactly what he's good at. Um, but he's just so quirky. Like, oh my gosh. I mean, literally one of the funniest people of all time. There are so many stories I could give. Some are maybe not suitable for for the internet. But John is literally one of a kind, one of the best. And just I hope he comes out with a podcast or something one day, or like he and I can go on like SNL together. Like that'd be incredible because the guy is just, a firecracker. It's awesome.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah,
From what
Brendan and
I
I
see
will
of,
commit to starting that campaign, right?
There you
yeah.
go. Yeah. I love it. I love it.
Like from what I see of him in like interviews or the little clips online, I feel like he could be like the greatest color commentator in the history of television, but I feel
Oh,
like
no
he's just gonna
doubt.
like go off the grid and retire with his kids and not really ever be seen again.
I was gonna say I will be lucky. And again, I played with him for basically the better part of 6 years. I'd be lucky if I ever see John Brevier again. You
Yeah.
know, there's no telling what he's going off to do, and he'll probably move to like some obscure country, and like I said, you'll never hear from him again.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I was covering the game where he with the Kapler thing and coming out to the mound, and I thought like they had gotten into it, and then I thought to
yeah.
myself, but it's Brebbia, so there's no way.
No, there's no way. John was, like I said, he was always one step ahead when it comes to comedy and coming to baseball too. He had a one hell of a year too, and one hell of a career as well.
Yeah, and you touched on this a little bit earlier, but one of the little parts of baseball that I love is when guys have multiple stints with one team,
Hmm.
like coming back to a team after some time away. And you did return to the Mariners, the team that you were drafted, developed, and debuted with almost a decade after you left. So even though it was kind of short-lived, what was that homecoming like for you?
I wish I pitched a lot better. Like it was such an awesome, like nostalgic, return to Seattle, and a credit to those guys in the organization. So, like something that went a long way. It's such a small thing, but it went such a long way with me. Was a lot of their clubhouse staff was the same as when I was a rookie, and when I got picked up and went back there. I remember those guys in the clubhouse, like they saved my old locker, like they put me in my old locker from when I was a rookie, and just like talking about old stories and rehashing those memories like that were so good there too. Like the little things go a long way, and the relationships I built in Seattle as a rookie, and then when I came back 10 years later, are so great, and I have so much love for that city and that organization. Like I said, I wish I could have pitched a whole lot better my second time around, but I'll always have a little soft spot for them because of just how they treat guys, and they really gave me a good break and a good jump start to my career.
Yeah, for sure. And a few more here before we wrap up because we've kept you for too long, so we
Oh,
definitely
you're good.
appreciate you. Staying on the topic of Seattle, I think
Yeah.
this was the one year where I just saw Seattle booming. Like we just saw a fan base that was ready to erupt, and it just seems
Hmm.
like there's it's kind of an underrated fan base in a way. So how would you describe the atmosphere in Seattle? And I guess talk about Seattle, the baseball city. We know about it as just a normal city with stuff to see, but I feel like it gets a little overlooked in a baseball sense. Would you agree?
100%. Some of the best fans in baseball, by far. And, you know, they, they're in a little pocket up there in the Northwest, right?
Yeah.
Like there's not a whole lot around. I remember the travel for Seattle was brutal when we were playing. Like your closest flight and place was, I think, San Fran or
Right.
Oakland, right? And it was
Oakland.
like
Yeah.
it was like a 2.5 hour flight. And so like you're really secluded up there. And so the fan base just dives all in. Like it's such a good little baseball town. They obviously had some really good history. They have some legendary players that have gone through there. Um, but again, it speaks to the organization, but it also leaks into the fans. The fans are so loyal. They want to buy in. They want to get to know the players. They want to rally behind the players. they want to, they want to do whatever they can as a community to hype you up and to pump you up and to bring a winning product to Seattle. And they are so deserving of success. It was so hard for me to watch the ALCS, and I'm watching the Mariners and I'm watching the Blue Jays, two amazing fan bases, two teams I played for, two organizations I played for, two organizations I love. And I'm like watching this thing and I'm like, oh my gosh, I go, who do I root for? How do I pull for anybody? But again, back to the Seattle fans, man, like, again, I don't know that I would be where I am today if I didn't have the support of the fan base, let alone the organization that I got from them. And I wish them all the best. I'm hoping they get over the hump, man. I'm dying for them to get over the hump, get to the World Series. Hell, win the damn thing too, right? Because the people within that building, within the organization, are great. But that pocket of the country, Seattle, man, they have some special fans, and I really hope that they can get to the pinnacle one day.
So coming towards the end here, the last year of your career was, of course, spent with the team that ended up losing the most games ever, the 2024 White Sox. And
yeah, thank you for that. That's awesome. Yeah.
I mean, obviously, that's not something that you dream of having your name attached to, but how did being on that team compare to the other years and teams of your career?
Yeah, obviously, look, we didn't do a whole lot of winning. That goes without saying, right? But again, what people don't see and what people don't realize is that was such a really good group. Those guys, man, like it's not like we didn't care. It's not like we didn't play hard. And those guys were great. Like we had a good vibe in the clubhouse, as good as you could when you're 3-28, I think at one point. And what's crazy for me is like I really had to grow up during that year because I was 32 and I was one of the oldest guys on the roster, and really one of the oldest guys on the pitching staff. So I had to just really be a positive presence and help these guys out, help these young guys out, these rookies that were coming up. And it's hard to do that when you're just constantly losing, right? So I tried to be a good clubhouse guy. I tried to bring some good vibes. I tried to bring some humor, some fun. I mean, obviously with Brevia being there too, like that helped. But despite us not getting it done on the field, off the field, guys were working their asses off, and they were really trying. And again, another city where it's too bad, right? Like Chicago is a great sports town, a great sports city, and White Sox fans are just as passionate. Like they love that team, they love that organization, and yeah, you never want to be the worst, right? But those fans certainly didn't, deserve it. The players, the guys, the organization, but it's just kind of is what it is. That's how it happened that year, and But again, the players that I played with there, we had a blast, and for what it's worth, we gave it everything we had. It just didn't turn out to a lot of W's.
Yeah, and in that final season, there's a moment there where you had gone through some arm issues, and there's the UCL sprain there at the end, and when you left that game, like there's so many people that talk about how they had the jersey ripped from them. Some people are lucky enough to voluntarily retire and kind of know that they're going to retire before the season's ending. Did you know that it would be the last time you were out on a big league field when you walked off the field with the UCL sprain?
I did. And again, I'll take you back a little bit. Like I was rehabbing that injury. I got banged up in May. What people don't realize, like I threw, I think 17 out of the first 31 games that year, or something like that. 17 out of the first 32, something like that. And so I was in there a lot. Again, I wanted the ball, right? But I think at that point, like it just started to catch up with me a little bit. So I got hurt. I'm rehabbing out in Arizona, and I'm making some progress, not a ton of progress. They're doing everything they possibly can for me. And I remember when I went back and I got activated, I threw a couple games in Charlotte, went really well. and I got back to the big leagues. And I remember my first couple outings, we were in Oakland, and I pitched, and I just was like, this doesn't feel like it's just going to go away, right? Like I've had nicks and bumps before that have just kind of gone away, but this felt like it was sticking around. And so I battled through it. My stuff was still good. So, I wasn't going to really, shut myself down. But, through that whole season, it being really tough and us not winning and us not having a lot of success, I remember that game. I was pitching against the Yankees, and yeah, like it's almost like movie quality-esque, very, a movie that would never hit theaters, but, would definitely come out on DVD. Where I throw the pitch to Soto and I walk him, and I think I spiked it because I ended up slipping and I fell. And like when I slipped, I fell, and I'm like on one knee and I'm looking at the ground, and like in that very moment, it was kind of like for love of the game-ish, where I couldn't hear a noise. Like you could, in my brain, you could hear a pin drop, and my arm was like killing me. It felt like somebody was stabbing me with a knife, right? And I just remember looking at the ground, and I took a big, like, deep breath, let it out. And I just, at that moment, like I knew I was done, right? I knew it was over. I had a feeling it was probably a UCL sprain or a ligament tear or something like that. And, at the time, yes, you can rehab and you can do all this stuff. And if I wanted to prolong it, I could. But, the reality of the situation hit where again, I'm staring at the ground. I'm emotional because I'm in pain. I'm pissed. I just walked Juan Soto. I'm like, damn, and I remember I called the trainers out, and that's when I knew. Like I looked around the stadium. I'm looking around the upper deck, and again, it hit me in that moment that this was it. My time was done. But to your point, right? Like everyone always says, 99% of the time, you don't get a chance to dictate your own career, right? The game will move on, and they'll tell you when you're done, right? And in that moment, I said, well, you know what? Like I have a chance. This is my last chance to make a decision on my own, like decide if I'm done when I want to call it quits. So I did that, and elected to not get the surgery. I did have a grade 2 UCL tear and needed full Tommy John. So I at that moment I said, you know what, I literally left everything I could on the field. And that was, how I lived my whole career. It's how I lived every pitch, every game. And, I thought not the prettiest way to go out, but hey, it's on my terms. So.
Yeah, and if there was a farewell tour of some sort and you did like do a whole this year is going to be my last, I think teams would have probably given you like a pregame ceremony where they gave you all shoes based on your background and like maybe a few more guitars too.
Yeah, right.
It is bothering me, Dominic, who signed the guitar in the background, because I like can't keep my eyes off of it. We have to know whose signature is on the guitar.
Okay, so that is from this is honestly not even baseball related.
John Brevia.
Yeah, I wish. No, it was. I believe it's signed by Darius Rucker of Hootie and the Blowfish. I won it in a golf tournament that I played down here in Charleston. My scramble team ended up placing first, and we won the tournament. And it was a pro-am jam for, I believe it was. Mark and Denny Hamlin, the NASCAR guys. And so it was a great event. And I think it's Darius Rucker to answer your question.
Yeah, no,
but back to
ask.
But back to the ceremonial, season, as much as I'd like to think, I'd get the Mariano treatment and the Big Papi treatment and stuff like that.
The broken bat rocking chair.
Yeah, I don't, maybe like teams would just give me the home run balls that their players hit off me or something. Like, I don't know. Like, there wasn't a whole lot of gifts they could have given me. Let's just say that, just acknowledging it would have been enough.
Yeah, no, 100%. All right. Now, real quick, transitioning to becoming a former big leaguer. I feel like we don't ask athletes this enough, but Was the transition away from baseball difficult from you? Because, like, obviously you have kids, you're married and everything, but it's also something that you've done every summer, like pretty much of your life, and like
Hmm.
everything you've ever worked towards, and now like it's gone, and you have to like figure out what to do. So, like, was there just boredom, kind of like identity crisis, trying to figure out what to do next when you finally
Yeah, all of the
hung them
above.
up, I should say?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
no, seriously, all of the above, right? Like, making the decision to retire was probably the easiest thing. Then it's like, now what do you do?
Yeah.
And I'm still in that process, right? Like, I just started this whole content thing and social media deal a couple days ago. I got back from the MLBPA Career Summit. They put on a thing every year for retired and former players, and it's a great avenue. If any former players are listening and you guys haven't gone to it, I highly recommend you do. It's a great networking event. They have a lot of resources to, guide you in the right path to, maybe finding your next career. Yeah, like for me, like again, I went home and I spent like a couple months just not doing anything. I was bored. I was like, man, what do I do? I had my kids and I loved spending time with my kids and just being around them. And but I jumped right into, training and giving guys lessons. And I worked with a lot of high school athletes in this area, and youth athletes in this area. And it was great. Like I loved it. Um, but I felt like there was probably something more that I could do. And so, now I feel like I'm just constantly looking and seeing where I can, share my stories, but also bring value to, a community. And so by the content creating thing, I'm hoping I can reach, youth athletes, their parents, former athletes, former guys, hey, anybody, right? Because in the form of comedy and talking baseball and talking all of like my personal interests, I know that there are thousands of guys just like me that don't necessarily have the chance to share their story or share their interest or share, what they want to do next in their career. And so, maybe by me providing this avenue, guys will feel like they can, gain some traction in their own lives because it is a struggle. I know plenty of people. I have plenty of friends that have made the transition, and it's hard. It's really hard. We're jumping back into a job world that feels like it's 30,000 miles ahead of where you're starting. So, just again, taking it one day at a time and just, finding the interest in things that I want to do is really kind of my main goal. But, this content thing seems pretty fun, social media, podcasting. Yeah. Hey, man, I like joining the space. So,
Yeah, I was going to ask about the content creation route because you have been very active on Instagram lately. And for the people listening who want to keep up with you, what can we expect from your Instagram and social medias going forward?
yeah, so again, it's just the authentic daily experience with me, right? And I like to just poll the audience. People have been asking about, hey, tell us about yourself, talk about the teams that you played with, right? Like I have a unique opportunity to describe an experience with 10 different organizations over 12 years. Like I've got a lot of content, right? We can dive deep into some stuff. Um, and so, what you guys can expect on Instagram, like actually today, is day one of a series where I'm starting to talk about every team I played with, starting with Clemson. So that's today's content. And going forward, I'll talk about that. I'll talk about baseball. I'll talk about the mental side of baseball, right? Like we dig deeper into that, but also like just being fun, man, being authentic, talking about things I like, right? I like shoes. I like golf. I like Clemson. I like football. You know, there's so many different routes that I can take it. The main goal and the main thing that I want to do is I just want to be authentic, right? And be real. Allow the general fan who sat in the stands and bought a ticket to watch me play, like to understand that, like, yeah, you might have seen me on the field, but like now you can see that, hey, I'm a human just like you, man, right? Like, hey, you're up there, you love playing Call of Duty. Yeah, I like playing Call of Duty too, right? Like the guys that you see on the field are human, right? We're not all robots except for Shohei, but um, you know, we have personalities, we have lives, we have families, we just want to share. We just want to share just like everybody else. So I hope that people take in my content. They enjoy it. Hopefully they participate in it. Right. I want questions. I want suggestions, and that way it's an interactive thing. It's not just about me. Right. It's about a community. It's about a fraternity, and it's about just building a community going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And last thing here, would you think about like coaching in professional baseball? Like, has that crossed your mind at all?
Yeah, definitely. It was actually the route I wanted to go initially, and still could. Right, I'm not shutting the door on that. I do think I have a very good insight on mechanics and on pitching, and a unique blend of the old school and the new school with coming up in the old style system and then now having to adapt to analytics. So um, I love helping former players. I love helping current players, right? Guys, I loved during my White Sox years, like I said, I had kind of had to grow up. I kind of had to be a coach, right? I had to help guys through stuff and navigate the game. And I definitely have a unique perspective on that. For me right now, I've got two little kids, and I want to be home with them, and the demands that a coach goes through in terms of schedule and being away from their family is brutal. So might not be the best thing for me right now. Who knows? I mean, if an opportunity comes calling, like I said, I'm not just gonna shut the door immediately, right? You've gotta have an open mind, especially now with so many different avenues to pursue. So, but I do feel like I could be of value in that space. It's just whether or not I get the right shot.
Yeah, well, keep an eye on Kirk Casale because like he's looked at as a managerial process in this game, and there might be room for you on a staff. So keep an eye on
Look,
Kurt.
Kurt would be very good at a lot of things. Playing cards is not one of them, and also, he likes to tout himself as a good golfer. He is, but I like to say that I'm better than him. So
Sounds like a future video on Instagram.
there you go. Yes.
Dom, we really appreciate you coming on. This was just a total blast, getting to know you a little bit, and we can't wait to see the rest of your videos, and definitely very much appreciate it, and happy Thanksgiving, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me on. Happy Thanksgiving to you guys and your families and everybody. And like I said, I appreciate you letting me have this outlet to talk a little bit about myself and relive some good memories too.
Absolutely. And everybody could go ahead and follow Dom on Instagram. Go check out his I said that it was his influencer era. So
Yeah.
he's in his influencer area now, and everybody could go check that out at DLeone26. That's DLEONE 26. He's a Paisan.
Hey.
And everybody could go follow the podcast on Twitter and Instagram at RizzoCast. Thank you everybody for listening, and have a great one.